Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's CAS Assessor training on conversational case management. We'll be getting started shortly, but please feel free to drop your agency and your name in chat so that we can see who's in the room. We're seeing a few more folks join us today. All right, welcome, welcome. We got a good mix of folks, case managers. Welcome. We'll get started in a short few minutes. And we have our lovely presenters and speakers today from SSF, Monisha Davis, as well as Daryl Rogers, who you'll be hearing from in a few minutes. All right, so welcome again. If you're just joining in, this is the final training in the CAS Assessor training series, focusing on conversational case management. And so today, as a reminder, you will continue to see those yellow bookmarks scattered across our slides, and those are to serve as a reminder for you as key points that will be highlighted and asked in your certification quiz that will be launching at some point before the end of this week. So today, please do feel free to use our Q&A feature. That will be the best place to ask your questions on the topic that we're covering today for our presenters to answer during today's session. We're also going to be opening up the chat for some interactive participation today. And of course, as you're coming into this training, we absolutely want to hear who's coming in and who you're representing in this call, in this meeting. And so we are also offering some closed captioning for better visibility to the content. And this training is being recorded for access later on. Again, today's training is focused on conversational case management, which is what will be happening, what you will be taking part after completing an assessment with your client. And so the main objective for today is to understand and implement conversational case management through learning the principles and ways to integrate a more strength-based and human-centered approach to supporting your clients. You will learn through case stories and get tangible examples of how this style of case management can rapidly exit folks from homelessness. Okay, so in the next bit here, Monisha will be launching us into the importance of conversational case management. And so, Monisha, the mic to you.
Thanks, Nika. Hey, hi, you guys. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Monisha Davis, and I am the case conferencing coordinator, or the one who spams you with all the emails and all the updates and stuff. But welcome to the presentation for conversational case management. Here at SSF, we emphasize the use of conversational case management, including housing problem solving, motivational interviewing, as essential approaches in addressing homelessness because they foster client-centered, trauma-informed engagement. These techniques help build trust, empower individuals to explore solutions, and encourage self-determination in a client's housing journey. So let's be honest, case management isn't just paperwork and lots of referrals. It's also about conversations. And not just any conversations, but having those conversations that build trust, uncover needs, and empower a client's need to move forward. It does sound simple, right? But there is a catch. It is one of the hardest skills to master, Some individuals are able to pick it up naturally, while there are some that struggle to find the right words and the right tones, or the right moment to push or pull back from a client. And let's not forget that every client is different. So what works for one may not work for another. So why does this matter? Because how we talk to a client can make the difference between them engaging in services or deciding to walk away from the assistance that's being provided. The right conversation at the right time can definitely change a client's life. So today we are going to break down what makes great conversational case management work, why it's tough, and how we can all get better at it. Next slide, please. All right. So the importance of conversational case management. This case management approach is especially critical in understanding a client's housing needs and getting deeper than what an assessment alone can accomplish. Additionally, CAS assessors need to be skilled in listening and structuring housing plans that are responsive to a client's needs. With so few resources, it is critical that we explore alternative housing options, which can include exploring a household support system, such as trying to see if they can maybe go back with friends and family, and understanding what programs and interventions have or may be helpful or useful in the past, helping a client kind of navigate through this process. I would like to also just note, have you ever read a multiple choice question and thought, none of these answers really fit, or none of these answers fit my situation that I'm in, but I'll pick the best one that I think would explain my situation the best? Now, imagine feeling like your entire life is on the line. And as caseworkers, we rely on assessments, but it's not always as accurate as we would like. And sometimes it's because a client may not necessarily understand the questions that are being asked, or it's also embarrassing sometimes that they are talking to someone that they just met and you're asking them all of these things, you're getting in their business, and they're like, what does this have to do with me getting housed? And sometimes it's just some subjects are touchy to some clients and it can be embarrassing for them. So we do want to bridge that gap and not just rely on those assessment questions to try to dive in and get a deeper understanding for a client's needs. Next slide, please. All right, conversational case management. It is client-focused, collaborative approach to case management. It uses purposeful trauma-informed dialogue to explore and address the needs, goals, and challenges of the individual seeking support. And it is a dynamic process that uses active listening. It engages clients with open-ended, not yes or no questions, asking thought-inspiring questions and guiding discussions to empower clients to identify their personal strengths, set achievable goals, develop solutions to overcome barriers. This method emphasizes building trust and rapport through open, non-judgmental communication. Next slide, please. So, motivational interviewing. I like to call it the art of guiding change. Have you ever wanted something for someone more than they seem to want that for themselves? Maybe a client who needs housing, but won't fill out. Maybe there's a client who needs housing, but they won't fill out the application. Or there's maybe someone who you're trying to help, but they keep missing appointments with you, or they're not showing up. That's kind of where motivational interviewing can step in. It's not about convincing people to change, but it's about helping them find their own reasons to want to change. Motivational interviewing is all about listening, guiding, and sparking that aha moment within a client where the client can take the lead in their own process. Today, we are going to break down what motivational interviewing is, how it works, and how to use it effectively. Next slide. All right. So please drop in the chat on a scale of 1 to 5. What do you guys think is the importance of knowing your paperwork? And if anybody puts a 1 in the chat, you're going to be staying after class for additional lessons. But 1 to 5, how important do you think it is to know your paperwork?
Manisha, you got lots of fives and a 10. I'm seeing a 10 here.
Oh, a 10. Who put that? Extra credit for that one. Somebody put an exclamation point. I'll take that as an A plus too. Uh-oh, 5 plus, Kevin. Love it. Okay, so no ones. Somebody said an 11. No ones, because I was like, somebody gonna be in trouble if they put a 1 in here. Okay. All right, next slide, Nika. Okay, so why is it important? So it gives control to the clients, providing them an opportunity to self-govern. Oh, I love that, self-govern. That just sounds like I'm on top of stuff. Creates a connection with your client by creating brave spaces without judgment, and it gives the client dignity in an otherwise challenging moment in their life. Some 4 guiding principles to motivational interviewing is engagement, which of course builds the trust, the rapport through engagement. Focusing, it allows you to work together to set those goals. Exploring, which would help them uncover their reasons for wanting and needing change. And planning, which is partnering with them and not for them. Next slide. Okay, skills to use. So, of course, we want to use a strength-based approach. Through active listening, identify what worked in their life, like their work life, their personal life, just throughout their life, what worked for them before, and how can we tap into that again? Supporting them to identify personal values and needs, and empower them with client-led decision-making. Helping guide them through conversations with clients instead of directing. Practice empathy, because empathy equalizes, whereas sympathy separates. And practice active listening and ask open-ended questions, always. Next slide. All right, practical tips. Listen more and talk less. You know what your mama said, be quiet sometimes and listen. You might learn more instead of talking so much. So give them the space to be heard. Know your paperwork and still engage with the conversations and let them know that you're paying attention, but also allow them that space and that comfort to be able to feel comfortable to express and be vulnerable with you as their worker. Know your paperwork and engage with the conversations. Use open-ended questions. I know y'all are going to get so tired of me saying that, but it's so important. Affirm their strengths through active listening. Reflect what you hear in your own words so that the client feels heard and seen. This also gives the client a moment to refine and see it from a different perspective when they do that. And next slide. And then we've got a nice video for you guys to listen to. So please listen, because there is going to be a little pop quiz after this.
All right. One moment, everyone.
Hey there. Welcome to our guide on mastering active listening for managers. Effective communication is key in today's fast-paced world, and active listening plays a huge role. So let's dive in. Active listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about truly understanding the message. Imagine this. Have you ever had a conversation where someone nods along but seems totally disconnected? That's not active listening. Here are some key points to understand it better. Engagement. It's about being fully present in the moment, focusing not only on the words, but also on the tone, body language, and emotions behind them. Empathy. It involves putting yourself in the speaker's shoes, trying to grasp their perspective, feelings, and intentions. Response. It's not just about being quiet, it's about responding appropriately, showing that you've understood and validated what was said. Now, let's break down 7 essential techniques that managers can use to master active listening. Understanding the purpose of communication. Ever wondered why someone's telling you something? Understanding the underlying purpose helps you grasp the core message better. It's like deciphering the real why behind the what. Paying attention and really listening. We all have those moments when our mind wanders off mid-conversation, right? But active listening means giving your undivided attention, soaking in every word and responding thoughtfully. being open to learning. Have you ever found yourself thinking, I already know this? But what if there's something new to learn, a fresh perspective to gain? Being open-minded fosters better understanding and collaboration. Being patient and avoiding interrupting. It's tempting to jump in with our thoughts or solutions, but patience is key. Let the speaker finish their train of thought before chiming in. Trust me, it makes a world of difference. Not taking ownership of the conversation. As managers, it's easy to slip into a mode of control, steering the conversation where we want it to go. But active listening means letting the speaker lead, respecting their autonomy, and not hijacking the dialogue. Offer genuine feedback after active listening. Ever felt like your words were lost in the void? Providing meaningful feedback shows that you've genuinely listened and valued what was said. It could be a simple reflection, summary, or follow-up action. Thank the person for their communication. Gratitude goes a long way. It's about acknowledging the effort and vulnerability it takes to open up. A sincere thank you can foster trust, respect, and deeper connections. So there you have it, folks. Active listening isn't just a skill. It's an art that can transform relationships, boost productivity, and drive success. By mastering these techniques, we can become better managers, communicators, and leaders. So, let's put them into practice and see the magic unfold with Risely's free active listening assessment.
So that was the end of the video.
Right. So, were you listening and actively listening? And how many of the 7 techniques did you hear? And I think Nika's going to put a poll up for us.
Gonna give it about a minute or so. We're seeing some results come through already.
Oh, there we go. Oh, I love how 91% of you all chose the remain patient and avoid interruption. Uh-oh, it went down just a little bit, but
We're still getting some responses in. We're gonna give it 10 more seconds. And closing the poll. All right. The results are on the screen.
yeah. Remain patient is an important one. Awesome. Right, and then next slide, Nika.
Actually, since it appears that we have stabilized our participants, we have one more poll question for you before we move on. Again, I know many of you have already dropped in chat your name and who you're representing today, but we also wanted to do a check of which of you are already certified and who are waiting for this next certification series.
Wow, there's a lot who aren't CAS assessors yet.
Okay, we're gonna give it 30 more seconds. I'm closing the poll soon. Okay, closing the poll now. And we have 75% who confirmed that you have not yet been certified. And so stay tuned. At the bottom of this, the end of this hour, you'll be hearing more about how to become official certified assessors here in Sacramento. And looks like, Monisha, we've got quite a few people already using motivational interviews. So this is amazing. Keep it
Who's
up.
the 3% who's not using it?
Well,
Show yourselves now.
well, hopefully you're picking up new techniques and reintegrating in your work the techniques that we've just heard.
Yes, definitely. After this, that number better be 0. All right. Yes, everyone needs to be, even in your life. Motivational interviewing is good. Right. All right. Next slide, Nika. Okay. All right. So the purpose of communication is to understand the why. When we communicate with clients, it's not just about collecting information, but it's about understanding their story. Their why is what really matters, and why they don't do what they do. So we need to be mindful that that is an important conversation to have with the client. And then number 2, paying attention. Of course, that sounds simple, but when you're human, right? You have your own life stuff going on. You have your own family stuff that may be going on, work stuff. So sometimes it's hard to be present all the time when you are a human on your own and you're dealing with your own every day-to-day things. But it is important to be fully present in that moment with the client. So putting down your phone, putting down and unfortunately leaving your troubles at the door so that you can really focus and actively listen to what the client is saying. Number 3, be open to learning. Every client has something that they can teach us. Drop the assumptions, be curious, and go in thinking that you don't know everything about this person, and they may not even know everything about themselves. So it may be a journey that you guys are kind of on together where they're learning about themselves while you're helping them learn about themselves. And number 4, be patient and avoid interruption. Every client needs that time and that space to feel like their words are not being silenced. So I would just say that is important, and you want to make them feel comfortable. So don't rush them either. And respect them. Just respect them and let them be the lead speaker in their own story. Let your client guide their own flow. This is their story, not yours. So let them speak their truth and let them be able to be vulnerable and share open and honestly with you. And number 7, of course, close with gratitude and appreciation. I just love that because to us, it might seem easy to kind of tell someone your story, but when you are in a situation that some people look at as embarrassing, that's a big step for a lot of people. So even if they just share one small detail about themselves, show them that gratitude that they were able to maybe possibly even overcome a fear of telling someone their story. So I love that. Close with gratitude. Next slide, please. Oh, this is my favorite, one of my favorite little mini videos, you guys. It's so cute. Okay, so make sure you listen to it. It's cute and it's funny, but it's also super informative. And then we'll go over some of the details of the video when it's over.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right, so let's talk about that video just a little bit. Who has ever shared something with someone and who's been hit with well, at least when you're struggling with something? And how does that make you feel? Like, have you ever gone to someone and said, hey, I lost my job yesterday? And someone said, well, at least you had one. Or I'm feeling super overwhelmed right now. Well, at least you have a roof over your head. Those at least are really helpful. And in the video that Brene Brown showed us, that true empathy is not necessarily about fixing something or comparing something that you've gone through or even throwing out that silver lining, but it's about showing up and saying, I hear you. I may not be able to do anything right now, but I'm here for you. So the next time someone share something that's tough or share something, and maybe you don't even have the right words to say, just pause before responding, and just even sometimes being with them in silence is better than saying and at least, or trying to look for the positive in something. Just being in that hole with someone sometimes can be empowering for both you and that person. So I'll leave it with that. And then Nika, I saw you brought the next slide up. Right. And so this is going to be Daryl. He's going to step in and go over the next couple of slides. Daryl, do you want to introduce yourself too? Because I didn't even allow you that space earlier.
No worries. My name is, first forgive me, I'm a little bit under the weather. My allergies acted up. My name is Daryl Rogers. I'm a person with lived experience and a housing problem solving trainer as well. And I'll be going over the next slides, which has a lot to do with body language or role. Try to be relaxed. Don't put the desk between you and the person. Make sure you have a private and quiet space. Be open. Check your body language. No judging. Why? I think you should. Lean towards, engage them and reinforce skills and eye contact, acknowledge and appropriate eye contact and follow their cues. And all these things are subjective. Some people don't want you to lean forward to them. Some people don't want to make direct contact. So just being open and paying attention to your client and what makes them uncomfortable is very important. Next slide, please. Hello.
Daryl, are you seeing the slide that says core principles to housing problem solving?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So the core principles to housing problem solving is the person-centered, client-led identity strengths by active listening, community as a support option, offer short-term options to divert people experiencing homelessness, housing-centered conversations, and a light touch assistance. Forgive me, I'm a little under the weather. I took some notes down as far as housing problem solving is concerned. It's a trauma-informed centered approach, and the 5 techniques that we heard from active listening are we go over them uh, again and again. Uh, it allows the client to realize their resources, their hard and soft skills, and things that they've also been utilizing to make it thus far while experiencing homelessness. The 5 housing problem steps are the introduction. Introduction is very key. It allows the client to make a decision whether they are willing or able to even have that conversation at that time. It puts the power back in their lap to say that if it's a good time. An introduction would also look like asking if the client needs water or is hungry at that time. Active and empathetic listening, exploring strengths and networks and skills, short and or long time housing options, next step and follow-up. The housing problem solving steps are introduction, active and empathetic listening, exploring strengths and networks and skills, short and or long time housing options, and next steps and follow-up. What are open-ended questions? Questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no, other than one-word answers. Topics we are invited people to discuss. Could you please tell me more? Can you share a time when? What steps and how do you feel? We can learn so much more when they just share, including how they felt about it. Gives opportunity to express feelings. Close-ended questions look like, do you have a place to stay tonight? Versus, can you tell me about your current housing situation, which is an open-ended question. Do you have any friends or family who can help? Are you able to afford rent? Have you looked for a roommate? Did you ever live on your own before? Or would you be open to mediation with a landlord and or family members?
And then I want to go back to really quick, Daryl. I want to go back to the open-ended question one too, just so we can dive into that one just a little bit. Just going back to the open-ended questions, I just want you guys to, when you're thinking about these questions, and I want you to picture yourself actually talking to a client. And when you ask simple questions like, do you need help with housing? And if it's a yes or no answer, sometimes you may even find that a client might even just be like, no, I'm okay. Or they might give you a very just not direct type of response. And it's more than likely because a lot of times those conversations don't unlock real, or excuse me, those questions do not unlock real conversations. Now, if you take it further and kind of start diving into those questions, like if you ask a question, do you need my help or do you need help with resources? And they say, no, I'm okay. Then you can kind of start diving in and saying, well, what other things do you need help with? Or what are other things that you're interested in doing? Those kind of things, so that they can try to take a deeper look into what they need help with, not just yes or no responses. Sorry, Daryl, I just wanted to kind of just go
No
back and touch
worries.
on it a little bit.
One of the things that we go over during housing problem solving along those veins is that we realize that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? By simply asking them, is this a good time? Paired with open-ended questions will get you a lot of information that might be much better suited to serve that person, whether it's exploring their strengths, their networks, their hard skills, their soft skills. But it's been my experience that until people understand that you really care about them and you're not just there to give an assessment, they're really not going to be open to really giving you any pertinent information other than, want to know is, can you help me today? So I definitely agree with that.
And then I know Daryl had went over these. We can go over them again because I don't think the slides were up. But closed-ended questions and turning those questions into open-ended questions. So like the closed-ended question would be, see, this would be a yes or no. Do you have a place to stay tonight? That would be either yes or no. Now you can turn that into a deeper conversation by saying, can you tell me about your current housing situation? They can't answer yes or no to that. I guess they could say, no, I don't want to tell you anything. But I mean, more than likely, they would kind of dive in and tell you a little bit more about what's going on. Do you have family or friends who can help? I mean, that's so vague. Like, yeah, probably, or no. Turning that into an open-ended question would be, who in your life has supported you when you faced challenges before? Are you able to afford your rent? Turning that into an open-ended question, what challenges have you faced in securing stable housing before? Have you looked for a roommate? Instead of saying that, what are some ways that you think that you could find, what are some ways you can think that could help you find stable housing? Have you ever lived on your own before? What was your past housing situation like and what worked well for you? Would you be open to mediation with your landlord or a family member? Instead of saying that, what options have you considered to help improve your housing situation? So kind of shifting from closed-ended questions to open-ended questions, it basically just encourages more deeper conversation and encourages the client to have more of a collaboration in terms of their own life and learning how to problem solve on their own. And it just encourages empowerment too. Daryl, did you want to add something to it?
No.
Right, next slide. And then how do you rephrase these questions to make them open-ended? I guess we kind of discussed that a little bit in the previous one. I would just say definitely avoiding any type of questions that can be responded with a yes or a no. Always try to keep the questions where they have to kind of really think about their answer before they give it to you. Almost like you're talking to your teenager. Your teenager ever get in the car and you're like, how's school, babe? How was school? It was good. Like, okay, well, what did you do at school? What type of day did you have? Like, you kind of have to dive in a little bit more with clients too. All right, next slide. I think that's questions.
All right, it looks like this wraps up our official presentation portion, and we have the next few minutes for Q&A. I don't see any particular submissions in the. Let me just double check the Q&A. I don't see any new questions in Q&A, but there is this one comment. So folks, if you have any questions, feel free to use your raise hand feature and we can call on you, or you can feel free to use that chat function. All right, Alicia, I see you. Oh, go ahead and try to come off mute. Alicia, do you still have that question? Okay, I do see this one question, and perhaps Daryl, you can start off, and Monisha, feel free to plug in here. Housing problem solving sounds like a reiteration of motivational interviewing. Still having trouble to distinguishing between these two. Can you provide a lucid explanation of the two?
With housing problem solving, because I do feel like they are very similar, uh, and uh, there's a lot of things that are very similar. With housing problem solving, I honestly believe that you get more of an example from persons with lived experience to go into more detail about how these motivational conversations and human-centered trauma-informed care affected them and what worked for them and what didn't. A lot of the information is very similar, But with housing problem solving, you have a host of people with lived experience that are giving their actual experience going through the system and experiencing homelessness from whether they were living in encampments in their car, uh, getting released from prison, whatever the case may be, to successful housing, and then maybe coming back and trying to share their experience of what worked and what didn't work for them.
I would agree with what Daryl said. I think with motivational interviewing, it's more focused on like collaborative. And I think to me, it comes off a little bit more kind of slow paced, where we're trying to gather information. We're trying to kind of invoke a client's own motivational and reason and wants for change. And we're trying to support the client and kind of move at the client's pace. Whereas for housing problem, I kind of look at that more as it's housing focused, it's very action driven, and it's goal oriented, that where it strictly supports exiting homelessness. It's also trying to kind of take a deeper dive into things too, but I feel like motivational interviewing is more taking that deeper dive into why this client became homeless. What can we do to try to avoid this again? It's more along the lines of stabilization and trying to figure out ways to maintain a client's housing once they're housed. Whereas I think the housing problem solving is more what's going on with this client's housing needs. How do we get them housed? Let's get it done. Action, action, action. Hopefully that helps.
If it and it, one more thing, in the end of one of the right before we got to the motivational um the seven sticks, the seven active listening techniques, one of the last things that was said was driving successes. With housing problem solving, uh you get a visual of successes that are not just specifically housing based, but getting to that point, right? Coming in and feeling heard, uh, which is a success. It you probably won't get housed that day, but you will come in and you will feel as if someone heard your story and you might be on the right path to being helped, if that makes any sense.
I appreciate both sharing more about housing problem solving and also differentiating what the between motivational interviewing. I have another question here asking what are some tips for unmotivated clients
Mm.
not interested in finding housing or participating?
One
Monisha,
of
oh, go ahead, Daryl.
I was gonna say one of what are some of the tips, and one of the things that also differentiates housing problem solving is one of the main questions that we go into the training with housing problem solving is what is it that you like to do during your free time? uh Realizing what housing looked like before you started to experience homelessness, and realizing what those things are that brought you joy or that you'd like to do when you did have free time, it's a very empowering question. I know that when it was my experience going through housing, and starting to go through this system, I went through a program, and things were bad for me, but the lady that worked there asked me, what was it that I like to do? And I told her that I like to read books. And although I didn't get housed for approximately another 120 days, every time I went to that program, that lady had a new book for me to read. And so during those 120 days, at least I knew where I could go get a book, uh, maybe be heard for a little while, and just feel like a human again. So
I
yeah.
would say too, when you say an unmotivated client, I think that it is important to also understand that unmotivation doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to. It may be also to fear, and it might also be the fact that they've been let down so much that it's just kind of like, I don't want to do this again. Like I've been told so many times that I would get housed, And here you are, just another with hourly worker coming over here to tell me that you're going to house me, and the same as all these other people were telling me. And I think it's important not to take it personal. And I also think that it's important to start more with, I think it's more important to start more with curiosity rather than corrections when it comes to a client. And what I mean by that is not trying to convince a client of anything. That's not necessarily always your goal. And sometimes it can backfire on you too, because sometimes, especially a client who like Daryl said, a client is, my background is working a lot with clients who are incarcerated, and they have, especially for long-term offenders who have been in and out of prison a lot, they've been being told what to do their entire life. So I feel like it's better to come at them in a loving approach, and in an approach where meeting them where they're at. If you're not ready for housing, or if you're not ready for a substance use treatment, or if you're not ready for shelter, I'm not going to force that on you. But I'm not going to abandon you either. I'm going to still be here to try to help guide you in the ways that I can, in the ways that you're receptive and open to it. And eventually, once that client sees that, man, I've been giving this girl a hard time, and I've been acting like I don't want this, and she's still around. A lot of clients after that feel like, man, I feel like she has my back now, because now I put her to the test, and she didn't give up on me, even though I was making her job a little difficult. She still stuck by me, and I've noticed that has helped me in the past with clients who weren't always motivated for change or for housing, because there are clients who don't always want to be housed, and a lot of times it's out of fear, and they may not be ready either. So you don't ever want to force that onto a client.
If I can add to that too, sometimes not being motivated might look like not feeling too good about yourself. I had these clothes on for 3 days, and I really don't want to sit in front of nobody and have no assessment or to be asked no question, because I don't feel good about me. Right. And so when you go into housing problem solving, or um, these different kind of um, assessment or conversational tools, the power in asking, is this a good time? Will evoke its own motivation, right? Because a lot of times a person, they might seem motivated, but they probably haven't had a good meal and don't want to spew uh, their problems out on anyone else. So uh, sometimes what looks like being unmotivated isn't that.
No, very
I
true, Derek.
appreciate you both expanding more on what being unmotivated might look like and how to best respond. And so, on a related note, I'm going to be combining two questions here. And I think it's really useful to hear from your case conferencing specialist perspective, Monisha, and of course, your advocacy out on the ground, Daryl, on these two questions. So, the first part is there extra training or help if we need it regarding this particular topic as folks are working with clients actively? And what are some resources that we can share and point our assessors to learn more about motivational interviewing and conversational case management overall? I
I know
see you.
I did. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I see you've dropped some links in response, but feel free to expand.
I know that when I was going to school, this website helped me a lot with motivational interviewing, especially when I had some essays or whatever they're called, reports that were due. This was like my go-to. So I would say that this has been helpful, but also to going to some of your, should I say your OGs, some of your old school workers who are in there, who have been kind of doing this work for a long time. They can help you. But I'll also tell you that motivational interviewing is also something that you just pick up on when you're kind of in this field. I would say, if you're new to this kind of work, give yourself time, because as you kind of grow in this industry, you will pick up your own approach that works for you with clients, because the same approach that I take with clients, doesn't always work with other people. I am very real with clients when I talk to them. I talk to them as though I've been knowing them forever, but it comes out very natural because that's just who I am as a person. That might not work for everyone else. It might make you feel uncomfortable kind of doing things like that. So I would also look at what you're comfortable with and what works with you when you're talking to friends and family. What approach do you use, and how can you bring that same approach over onto this side? Because I think that as workers, we forget that, yes, this is a job and we're getting paid, but these are not just UID numbers on a piece of paper. These are people. So just keep that in mind, that these are just human beings. How would you talk to a person, if you weren't at work, if you were just ran across someone who was in trouble or who needed help and you were just being a good citizen trying to help them? How would you approach them? Don't approach them like, oh, they're UID GF1995. Like, just talk to them like you would anybody else. I hope that helps.
Um, I gotta. There's a couple things that SSF is doing when there's a room full of providers that do this day in and day out. Frontline collaborative. I'm always say housing problem solving training. There's a lot of good examples, but you got a lot of grassroots people that are doing that. One of whom is on the PWLEC. He has a program called Seize the Moment, and this young man just he goes out to feed people, he goes out to clothe people, and he goes out to have conversation with people that are experiencing homelessness for no other reason, just other than to go out and have a conversation with them, right? I think that's a beginning. Like, it's not a job. This is something that you actually are invested in. And like Monisha said, these are people uh, that are experiencing homelessness. We are a community that is experiencing homelessness together, and I think that's the best way to do it. When you're not at work and you're not uh, uh, doing anything and you see somebody that might be experiencing homelessness, I pull over and holler at people. What's up, man? What you doing? What you going through? How can I help you? Just building a natural rapport and looking at them as a human and nothing more. Boots on the ground.
Appreciate that, Daryl. So we only have a couple more minutes to answer maybe one or two questions. This one in particular, I feel like is very important and is a good follow-up from the last training, which was covering um, uh, trauma-informed care and vicarious trauma. This particular question is asking, any tips on empathizing with clients without getting too in touch with your own emotions? We're all human, um, and we often have experienced these similar emotions. And so, how do you balance that conversation, and how do you work better with your clients? So, curious from your perspective, Daryl, and then Monisha, as you're able.
I would like to say one of our community agreements during trainings is step in, step back. Um, I've learned that I don't want to be not in touch with my human with my emotions. I do have to be careful of vicarious trauma because I am a single parent and I don't want to take things home to my children or to my neighbors. So I have to be mindful of any interaction, especially this one, something that's very near and dear to my heart. But I don't want to ever be away or not have those feelings. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Learning the balance, and one of the other things, especially when you're doing any kind of work that requires you um, a give or take or a push and a pull, is finding ways to honor yourself, whether that's reading, walking along the water, honoring yourself, so that you can have that enough in the tank to do it.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Daryl. Go ahead, Monisha.
So I'm like, for y'all who know me personally or know when I was working with clients, I struggled with this badly. I am one of those people who get too emotionally involved with clients. And sometimes I had to teach, or I guess talk to myself sometimes when a client, because we all have sad stories, right? And so I think it's important to remember that having empathy is more of understanding, right? It's not feeling their pain, but it's just understanding it and trying to respond to it compassionately. And that is so hard to do because I'm like, gosh, I want to feel it with you, friend. Like I'm in this with you. But it's important that we don't do that and that we reflect with a client, but we also don't take, unfortunately, their stuff home with us. And I would also like to just remind each and every, even myself, I'm reminding myself too when I say this, empathy without emotional burnout is a very difficult skill to master. And you do have to be careful in this line of work. But I would just say create boundaries that are compassionate but not cold. You want to make sure that your client knows that you are there for them and that you are there to support them. But boundaries are so important. And practice
Yes.
emotional checkouts too. Like if you're in something deep, like if you have a client who's telling you a story and it's like weighing heavily on you, take that time to step out and breathe and process and say to yourself, that was not my experience. It was theirs. But and I feel I understand that experience. Not feel, I almost said feel. I understand that experience, but release that because it's heavy on them. And you've got 30, 40, 50, 60. Some of you all have 100 clients that you all have on your caseload. You cannot allow that to necessarily weigh you down on top of your own life things that we are all going through. And also, just one more thing, and then because I know we got to go, presence is powerful enough. So, without, even if you are not able to be helpful in terms of like, gosh, I have this client who she's pregnant and she's outside and she has her infant outside, and I'm doing everything that I can to help. You were present. You didn't abandon her. You showed up and you are letting that client know that, hey, I am still here with you and I am present and I will be present until we are able to get you stabilized and get you the help that you need. Sorry, Nika, that's it. Because I'll go on and on about this.
No worries. We appreciate both of you and Daryl's expertise today. Just want to do a quick thanks before folks start dropping off. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your human-centered leadership across our community and the wonderful tips that you've shared today alone. And so in the next few minutes, feel free to, please do stick around. I'll be sharing a little bit more insight on the certification process. And then I know several folks had questions on HPS, housing problem solving, and so we'll get that answered momentarily. So big round of applause to our presenters. You're getting a lot of love in our reactions here. We didn't get to all of the questions that were submitted in Q&A, and so we're going to do our best to respond to you within the next couple of weeks or so for those who still have lingering questions. All right, so going into the next slide. So there are three major steps in the certification process after completing these trainings. As a reminder, this is the last within this series for quarter two. And so congratulations, you've completed CAS Assessor training. The next step for you is to gain access to our HMIS program if you are not already in the system. So you'll need to complete this HMIS agency request if your organization does not already have this HMIS access. If you do have this access, you can go ahead and go through your supervisor to submit an access request form. So that way you are essentially verified as a new CAS assessor to be enabled access and get this HMIS status. If you as a CAS assessor has previously had access to this the HMIS system, you're going to go ahead and skip to the next step that we're going to be seeing in a moment. So before we switch to the next slide, new CAS assessors, which is probably 75% of you who responded today, will need to review all of our HMIS training documents and videos. And if you're not a current HMIS user, you will need to complete that HMIS training and certification process as well. This CAS assessor process will include a certification quiz that you will be receiving by the end of this week. And so stay tuned, watch your emails to get all of the details from this session and those specific instructions. Okay, next slide. Step number 2 is to complete all of these CAS assessor trainings, which you have completed. For those who had questions about missing a couple of trainings over the last few weeks, please reach out to our email at the email is trainings@sacsstepsforward.org. I'll be dropping that in chat so that you have easy access. If you had any particular questions regarding official completion of these training series. Step 3 is to officially complete all of the forms and the quizzes that you will be receiving in consecutive order in email from our JotForm platform. So you'll be seeing emails coming through from SAC Steps Forward staff, as well as from JotForm and Constant Contact. So please watch your spam, your junk mail to make sure that you're not missing any important information from our team. For the certification quiz, you will highly advise to review our Housing Conversation Tool Best Practice Guide, as well as you have reference to all of these recordings, which are bookmarked with the key questions that will be asked and will be covered in this coming quiz. So this is we will be offering 3 tries, 3 attempts for you to be able to receive 100% score on this quiz before you get full access to the CAS agency in HMIS. So that is our CAS assessor certification process. In conjunction, we are also requiring our CAS assessors here in Sacramento to complete the housing problem solving training, which is an in-person 2.5-day process that will be delivered by our persons with lived expertise and really targeting our providers here in the Sacramento region. So if you're out of region, this is only a requirement for Sacramento providers. Essentially, we have hundreds of assessors or providers who are needing and wanting access to our system and to these assessments. And so we're considering you, after you pass this CAS assessor quiz, you are considered a provisional certification until you fully complete that HPS piece. We do offer housing problem solving training 4 times a year. We are holding one tomorrow, so tomorrow and Thursday for the remainder of this week. That class is already full, and so we are opening the remainder of this year, which is going to be in there's going to be one in September. Was that you, Daryl?
Yes.
There's 2
yes,
more.
That was me.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just confirming that was me.
There are 2 more trainings remaining. We will follow up with you all with the specific dates and timeframes to look out for. The registration link will be provided to you if you are still needing that HPS certification portion. And so, let's see. With that, congratulations to all of you for completing this 5-part CAS assessor training series this quarter. And thank you so much for sticking around a few extra minutes to learn more about the next steps in certification. And so, again, watch out for our upcoming emails. Access our SSF website for other relevant trainings to you. And again, please check your both your inbox and your spam for details from JotForm, Constant Contact, and from SSF staff directly. And with that, thank you so much, and we hope you have a great rest of the day. Oh, actually, not quite ready here. Please do complete our exit survey. We always appreciate the feedback that you provide us. to help improve the next training that we deliver for you. And so we do hope to hear from you all. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.